Well, it's just getting to be, Commissioner?
Very tall.
It's getting to be a pretty good week. I don't know what we're going to manage to do tomorrow, but it has been a great week for New York City. At the start of this week, if you remember, State Education Commissioner John King announced the new teacher evaluation system for city school kids that was a great victory for our students. City Bike, the new bike share program we launched on Memorial Day, continues to grow. In just 2 weeks, the program has provided 106,000 rides and attracted 32,000 annual subscribers. And today we received 2 court rulings that will mean more and better taxi service for New Yorkers. Also point out, I just came from cutting a ribbon on a new school, Promise Academy, up in Harlem. Great for the kids. They're going to have the opportunity, particularly from St. Nicholas houses, to go there. I was at Medal Day yesterday, where we honored some of the firefighters who made a difference in saving lives in this city. And it really puts a smile on your face to know that this city continues to attract people to come to work for it that have a great feeling of dedication and are willing to put their careers and, in many cases, their lives on the line to help the most wonderful city in the world. Today, I am glad to say that the special interests have lost and the people of New York City have won. I don't think there's any question about it. Thanks to the hard work of Taxi and Limousine Commissioner Chairman David Yassky and Corporation Counsel Michael Cardozo, we're now set to do something that mayors have been trying to accomplish for decades, something that New Yorkers have deserved and never had, and that's the right to hail a legal taxi in all 5 boroughs. Now, yellow taxis pick up 95% of their passengers in Manhattan south of 96th Street and at our airports. But we've long believed that the people who live outside of Lower Manhattan and in Northern Manhattan deserve to be able to hail a legal taxi with a meter and pay by credit card as well. And we think that livery drivers should have the chance to be part of that business. And now, with the New York State Court of Appeals' unanimous decision this morning, both riders and drivers will have that option. This is a huge win for riders and drivers alike. I just checked the stock of the company TAXI, the NASDAQ, that finances taxi medallions to see what the marketplace thinks. Their stock is up. And the stock market was down 100 points when it was. So that says that those people that finance medallions and the more rational yellow cab owners understand they're not going to get hurt. This is what's good for the city, and it probably is certainly not going to hurt their business, which is good. You can take a look at the price of taxi medallions. When we started this process, they were $800,000 a piece. Today, they trade for something like $1.3 million a piece. So the marketplace is saying this is good for everybody, including the current yellow cab medallion owners. We will now have borough cabs on our roads in all 5 boroughs this summer. And that means that in 2013, we'll have created 2 entirely new transportation networks at no cost to taxpayers, the borough taxis and City Bike. Each will give more New Yorkers more choices for getting around town, and that's great news for our city. The court's decision now allows us to move forward with putting up to 18,000 new borough taxis on our city streets over the next 3 years. And you can see one of them, which is painted apple green, just behind us. And I think it's important to note that 1/5 of these new taxis will be made wheelchair accessible. The state law that the court upheld also authorizes the city to sell 2,000 new taxi medallions for wheelchair accessible yellow taxi cabs. And that's great news for everyone who rides a cab and for anyone who has ever had trouble hailing one. And the sale of these new yellow taxi medallions will generate up to $1 billion in city revenue, including $300 million in the next fiscal year, which has already been in our budget. If you remember, we stretched out what we thought we would, when we thought we would get the revenues. We were always confident that we were going to win this, but we did know that it was going to take more time. We have $300 million in the budget this year, and we think that is accurate. And in future years, there will be a little bit of a cushion going in for the administrations that follow us. This morning, New Yorkers got a second round of good news about taxis, as if this was not enough. And different appeals court lifted an injunction against our new e-hail program, which allows people to hail yellow cabs using a mobile app. This is another great sign that taxi riders are winning and the special interests are losing. And we're going to move forward with our pilot program to bring this technology to more New Yorkers. The bottom line is special interests always are afraid of new things, but the public and society needs constant innovation and constant adaptation of new technologies, and you're seeing that right here. I might also point out that one of the new things we've done is 311 in getting you a handicap accessible cab. There's an awful lot of anecdotal evidence when you call 311 and you want a handicap accessible cab. That is a system that has started to work very well, and there's a lot of satisfied customers. The Borough Taxi Plan, the City Bike Program, and our new e-hail program all build on our work to give New Yorkers more, better, faster ways to get where they need to go. And I might point out that includes the select bus service that we launched in partnership with the MTA back in 2008. It also includes the East River Ferry service that we launched in 2011. And it includes the number 7 train extension that we will open with the MTA early next year. Whether it's borough taxis, or the City Bike Program, or expanded ferry and select bus service, or building a transportation network to serve we are building a transportation network to serve the needs of New Yorkers in the 21st century. And I did want to thank everyone who worked to bring taxi service to all 5 boroughs, including Taxi Commissioner David Yassky, Corporation Counsel Michael Cardozo, City Attorney Scott Shore and Rich Deering from the State Attorney General's Office, Deputy Mayors Bob Steele and Howard Wolfson, as well as Michael Lasher, who helped us pass the bill through the state legislature. With that, we're going to have a number of people, including those who really stood up for us in Albany, and our borough president from Manhattan, who was a big advocate and also helped get this done. We're going to start with David Yassky, but first let me also point out we have a former assemblyman with us, Guillermo Linares, and our Commissioner, Victor Calise, from the Office of People with Disabilities here with us. But let's start with the chairman of the city's Taxi and Limousine Commission, David Yassky, to share a few words. David?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, not just for giving me the opportunity to do this, but for your extraordinary and courageous leadership on every issue that I've dealt with at the TLC. I do think today's decision shows that common sense can win out and good ideas win out when you have the kind of persistence and courageous leadership that Mayor Bloomberg has led us with. So thank you again, Mr. Mayor. People in Brooklyn, people in Queens, people in the Bronx, people in Staten Island, people in northern Manhattan have not, for years, for decades, been able to do something that people think of as a quintessential New York ability. Put your hand in the air and flag down a taxi cab. Today, if you go outside Queens Center Mall or you go to Flatbush Avenue, on Sunday, if you go to a supermarket or you go to a church letting out, you will see people looking to get home. You will see the cars that are operated by some of the business people here today driving up to help them. But today, that is illegal. And today, the passengers, they don't know that the car is legal and licensed. They don't know that the driver has the good driving record that all taxi drivers do. They don't have the benefit of a meter. They can't pay by credit card. Today, the court decision allows us to go forward with the bill that was passed more than a year ago that will get all of those amenities to people who live and work in the boroughs, to people who come and stay at hotels in the boroughs or go to Barclays Center or go to any of the amenities and attractions in the boroughs, and will allow the people who do this work, who have been in the shadows, to come out and do it legally and make, I think, an even better living than they have been. On the mechanics, starting tomorrow, people who want a new street hail livery license will be able to call 311. As the mayor said, there's a limit of 18,000 licenses to be distributed over 3 years, 6,000 this year. So first come, first serve. And if people who want the new license will call 311 or go to the website, www.nyc.gov/taxi, and put yourself on that waiting list. The TLC will then give you an appointment date to come in. We will start next week having people come in and get the license, and then it'll be up to your folks.
If there's more than we can afford,
And if there are more than 6,000, we'll have to cross that bridge. But fortunately, there are 6,000 the following year, and then another 6 to come along. So, and then people, as soon as they put in a meter and a roof light and paint the car green, they're good to go. So I expect we will see borough taxis on the streets this summer. I just very briefly want to thank the people that really made this happen. You mentioned Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Wolfson, who's substantive and political genius. I think without that we would not be here. Bob Steele, of course, my boss, and former Deputy Mayor Steve Goldsmith, who really helped originate much of the content here. Michael Cardozo, the law department, made sure that this happened. And I also just want to personally thank Michael Lasher, whose extraordinary work in Albany ensured that this bill would get passed. All of the elected officials who are here today. And I also want to thank our TLC commissioners, Iris Weinshaw, Ed Gonzalez, LaShawn D'Arcy, Frank Carone, who did all the work necessary to get the TLC rules in place. I do want to mention the industry. I know you're going to say it. 2 years ago, the 2,000 livery drivers came here to City Hall, demanded Five-Borough taxi service. Good things come to those who wait. And today, they're going to get that. And I also want to thank, I know she could not be here in person, but Betavi Desai from the Taxi Workers Alliance. As you said, Mr. Mayor, the people who really do the work, the drivers, taxi drivers, know that if the livery folks can pick up in Brooklyn and Queens, that's not going to take away from a taxi driver. It's good for the city. That means it's good for the taxi drivers. And Ms. Desai's support was instrumental. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Let me just also reiterate once again that this decision from the highest court was unanimous. So those that had alleged that we weren't following what is the legal process, the highest court in the state unanimously said, forget about it. They did exactly what the law permits. That's the ways you find out what the law is. And you can't have a more accurate acclamation or whatever the word I'm looking for, affirmation. Good, I knew it was one of those affirmations. Thank you, Dave. Next, bringing tax service, also kidding aside, Five Boroughs required the partnership of a number of leaders in local and state government, and I would like to invite some of them now to say a few words and bask in the glory. When the public sees them and the public gets taxi service, they should not forget who stood up for them and led the charge, because that's exactly what good government is all about. If you want to elect people that will serve your interests and do what's right, you got to know who they are, and here's a chance to find out some of them, starting with Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer. Scott?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Today, Mr. Mayor, I finally feel that we could say, hell yes. We have accomplished something that is extraordinary, and I came to this issue as someone who grew up as a kid in Washington Heights and learned at an early age that the only way you were going to get beyond the neighborhood if you weren't taking a train, was to negotiate on Dyckman Street how a livery cab would take you where you had to go. Sometimes these cars were not safe. You didn't know quite who you were getting in the car with, and it was not a good situation. Yellow cabs would come to the neighborhood but never stop. And truly, that was discrimination that went on for decades. Today, this is a victory for the entire city, and we bring the city together because now what's good for South of 96th Street is going to be good for Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx, as well as my old neighborhood. This is something that didn't happen easy. The people here today spent a lot of work, and I want to commend the mayor for not standing down, but for accelerating this campaign to make sure that we could have a five-borough taxi plan. I also think we should not overlook the fact that in tough economic times, the revenue that's going to be generated is going to help budgets going forward. So when people talk about the fragile economy that we're grappling with, this is certainly a healthy down payment for the next administration, and I think that's equally significant. So I want to thank all involved, the advocates, the industry, Commissioner Yassky, the mayor, and all of the people who fought valiantly. I'm glad that my office was able to file an amicus brief, and I want to thank the people in my office who worked very hard to be part of this process. So thank you all very much.
Scott, thank you. And next up, Assemblymember Carl Hasty, who represents communities in the Northeast Bronx. Assemblymember.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm happy to be here today on something, a topic that it probably took about 2 years of my life away from me. But I think it was, and my hair, right?
At the other end.
But I think it was well worth it. As the mayor had said, that this is something that for decades we had been trying to get some borough equity in terms of taxi service. So I think this is a tremendous day for all New Yorkers, particularly even the disabled community, because of the part that they gave to this. We took everybody's opinions, everybody's ideas, everybody's subject, and we tried to flush out what was the best thing. And we made sure that we didn't want to damage anybody's business model, including the yellow taxi industry. We took what was happening, and now we're going to have a regulated, legal system. And I think whenever that happens, that's good not only for government, but it's good for people as well. And to my House, the Speaker of the Assembly, and our counsel, Jim Yates, who helped negotiate this bill, I think it's a great day for all New Yorkers. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Assemblymember Kareem Kamara, who represents communities in Central Brooklyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All my colleagues who've spoken already have spoken so eloquently, I can just say ditto to what they said. But I will say again, thank you to the mayor for his leadership, to Commissioner Yassky, to the borough president, Scott Stringer, and to my colleague, Assemblyman Carl Hasty in the Assembly for introducing the bill that I was a sponsor of, and all of them for their hard work and diligence over the past few years in working on this bill. As has been said, it's been decades in the making of this legislation, and the people who benefit most are those people in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, and northern Manhattan who can now hail a cab safely and legally, who have access to transportation in the outer boroughs. That's what this was all about. It was never about us. It was always about the people and making their lives easier so they can have safe and legal transportation. So again, congratulations to you, Mr. Mayor. We're glad about the court decision, and we're happy for the people in the outer boroughs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Robert Jackson, who represents communities in northern Manhattan, including Harlem and Washington Heights.
Well, Mayor Bloomberg, thank you, and everyone involved, thank you. In the communities that I represent, when we wanted a cab, we were not talking about a yellow cab. We were talking about a car service. And in my community, as I said in the hearings, when we did like that, from all practical purposes, that was legal in our community because yellow cabs were not there. The only time we saw yellow cabs was getting on the West Side Highway, going back downtown. And as you can see here, this is the type of green that our cabs in northern Manhattan and in Bronx and Queens, all over, this is the color it's going to be. And let me just say that it took a coalition of everyone, our attorneys and the advocates, but also, as I've said before, sometimes you have to have a great combination. And the great combination that I've said before, some people have the brains and some have the bronze. And together, we cannot be beat. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
He did not offer the apple to anybody to eat. Right. Next, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera, who represents communities in northern Bronx. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being bold and really tenacious on this particular issue. It's good to be on the same side for something that is so right. In my community, Jackson, sometimes you get to see the yellow cabs. I don't even get to see them at all. I don't see them at all. I see some of the people that are here right now, some of the bases that are representing some of the drivers that are there. And so now, because availability is going to be present, we're going to have accessibility in a way where people don't have to worry, the drivers don't have to worry. And so we're very, very grateful for this. Can I speak in Spanish?
Sí.
Gracias. Estamos muy agradecidos por el alcalde de Nueva York, por ser tan valiente en este asunto que es necesario en nuestra comunidad, donde en verdad hay una necesidad muy grande, donde no teníamos esta oportunidad. Pero gracias al alcalde de la ciudad de Nueva York y los electos que están aquí y aquellos que estaban peleando y batallando por este momento que estamos celebrando ahora, estamos muy agradecidos y los que ganan aquí es el pueblo. Muchas gracias.
To translation, he said yes. In working to bring expanded taxi service to our city, we've also had the partnership of a number of leaders in the business community, and that includes Sarah Angeles, owner of the. And you're gonna talk and say something.
Wow. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for listening to us. 2 years to the day, we stood here, not 2,000, but almost 6,000 of us, asking the mayor to listen to the communities, asking the mayor to recognize the work that we've done for 40 years, to recognize the inability in our communities, and that our drivers had to expose themselves every single day of their lives to do two things: answer the calls, but when it's not enough or somebody stops you on the street, I had to respond to that person waving to me because nobody knew what was right at that moment. He redefined that. Many mayors tried to do this before, and we welcome his idea until everybody put 2,000 plans on the table. And none of those plans resemble the kind of work that we did. None of those plans were addressing the work that our community did to service 7 million of New Yorkers and to service all the visitors, all the people that we had in the outer boroughs, and all the people who came from upstate to work downstate. We were there to service them, to pick them up from the trains, and to do the work. And for that, I thank you, everyone, each and every one of you, the Black Latino Nation Caucus and the City Council. We thank the Assembly, the Senate, all the leaders, Carl Hasty, everybody, Guillermo Linares, and everyone, but most of all, the commissioner and a great team of people who dedicated themselves to do this. And to all my guys, I call them my guys because the industry is ours. My father used to do this. He was number 29 in Riverside Radio Dispatch, and he did it with a lot of honor. And today I stand before you as the second generation of the livery industry who says, finally, we're no longer gypsies. We are legitimate. We have a choice. We can do it, and we can service the wheelchair-accessible community with the head up high, knowing that we're doing the right thing, and we're going to be happy to service each and every one of you. Hoy estoy feliz. 2 años al día estuvimos aquí pidiéndole al alcalde que escuchara nuestras voces. Hoy nosotros recibimos la noticia porque entendemos de que esto finalmente reconoce 40 años de trabajo de cada uno de ustedes. Reconocemos que no fue fácil porque había que llevar un servicio legítimo a nuestros condados y que la gente no sabía la diferencia de levantar las manos o hacer una llamada, y nosotros respondimos a esa necesidad. Hoy yo quiero dar las gracias al alcalde por escucharnos. Hoy yo quiero dar las gracias a todo el mundo porque básicamente desde el Black Latino Nation Caucus en el Consejo Municipal, la Asamblea, el Senado, Carl Hasty, todos los líderes, Linares, todos los que verdaderamente trabajaron para devolver la dignidad de 40 años de trabajo han dicho presente aquí. Y yo, segunda generación de taxistas, le agradezco a todos los míos, porque todos los taxistas yo los considero como míos. Es mi segunda casa y me siento feliz de estar aquí ante ustedes diciendo que vamos a hacer este trabajo en lo adelante con dignidad, con respeto, con honor, pero ya no somos gitanos. Ya somos y tenemos la opción de ser legítimos y vamos a servir a la comunidad minusválida y discapacitada con mucho honor y con mucho respeto, como siempre lo hemos hecho. Muchísimas gracias, y al comisionado y a su staff, gracias.
Señora, gracias. Permítame de añadir unas palabras. La ciudad de Nueva York por fin ha ganado el derecho de parar un taxi en todos los condados. Los taxis amarillos solo recogen pasajeros en ciertas partes de Manhattan y los aeropuertos. Ahora, gracias a la decisión de la Corte, hoy vamos a poder introducir 18,000 nuevos taxis verdes para todo el resto de la ciudad, dando más opciones a los neoyorquinos. And with that, we'll be happy to take